Well, he said it was his plan. He said this, several thousand times in public over 40 years. I was still shocked by the press conference, even though I knew that those were his beliefs and I basically agree with him. It was one of those moments where I was like, wow, I've marinated in libertarian economics for so long, my entire life living in DC, where everybody's a free market person, including me, free minds, free markets, or whatever dumb slogan that I repeated all those years. I didn't really, I wasn't against what Trump was saying, but I was like, oh my gosh, that's shocking that he said that. You can't erect trade barriers? I mean, like what? It's like all the childhood orthodoxies were still rattling around in my head.
Well, Tucker, thank you so much.
Oh, really thank you for having me. Are you kidding?
This is a joy. So we're speaking at the Heritage Foundation's annual leadership conference in Florida. You're giving an address on the main stage.
Yes.
You're kind enough to give us a little bit of time. So thank you for that. One of those big questions, obviously, right now that folks are looking at is what's going on with tariffs and sort of these different shifts and power plays that are being made. Really fascinating this week to see Trump say, okay, these reciprocal tariffs are going into effect. Then on Wednesday, he said, no, we're doing a 90-day pause on all reciprocal tariffs. But on China, we're raising tariffs to 125%.
Yes.
Was this kind of always, do you think, Trump's plan to put on this pressure of tariffs and then say, maybe we're going to pull up on other countries, but to leave that pressure on China?
Well, he said it was his plan. He said this, several thousand times in public over 40 years. So none of us should be surprised. And yet I was surprised. I was actually at the White House last Wednesday. Just happened to be not having anything to do with tariffs. But I was sitting in someone's office who was a former employee of mine. So I went over to go say hi before I went to the meetings that I had. And I happened to be sitting in this person's office. And he had the TV on and the press conference going on in the Rose Garden and I'm live and I'm just watching this and I was like shocked by it. Even though, I spent a lot of time around the president and I've known him for, 20 years. I've watched him for even longer than that. And he basically said in the Rose Garden what he's been saying all these years, but I was still like, even though I'm not a libertarian at all, and I was, but I'm no longer. And even though I agree with the basic idea, of course, strongly, I was still shocked by the press conference, even though I knew that those were his beliefs and I basically agree with him. It was one of those moments where I was like, wow, I've marinated in libertarian economics for so long, my entire life living in DC, where everybody's a free market person, including me, free minds, free markets, or whatever dumb slogan that I repeated all those years. I didn't really, I wasn't against what Trump was saying, but I was like, oh my gosh, that's shocking that he said that. You can't erect trade barriers? I mean, like what? It's like all the childhood orthodoxies were still rattling around in my head.
From reading the news.
From reading the news and just living there and just repeating the same bumper stickers for, 40 years. And so, I could tell you stories, but look, I can't assess, there's a lot that I can't assess about economic questions and I rarely weigh in because I'm just not an expert,
Sure.
Happy to interview Scott Bessent or someone who I think is credible. And I think he is credible, which I have. Yeah. Right. So I happened to be there that day and I knew the Treasury Secretary. I was like, hey, why don't you, tell us what you think about tariffs? And I just sat there like a mute, like I try to do, and just shut up and listen and ask dumb questions and just let him talk.
Yeah.
But big picture, there's going to be a disengagement from China. I hope it doesn't become a total disengagement, and I certainly hope there's not a military conflict. I don't think we'd win. Well, we wouldn't win at this point. But there needs to be some kind of disengagement on trade. Again, not total break or anything like that, but the U.S. has to produce pharmaceuticals, for example, has to produce critical military components. You have to be able to build a jet engine exclusively in the United States and not rely on supply chains 10,000 miles long or on countries that are hostile to you. That's crazy. It's just basic stuff. And we have the resources to do that. We actually do have the people to build the criticals. I don't think we're going to be building screw factories in the United States anytime soon. Hope not. But certainly we can build microchips and we can put together pharmaceuticals that are designed mostly here. We can make them here, like in New Jersey, like we used to. Like 20 years ago, we made them all here. And now we don't. So, you can onshore that. But that process has to start at some point. And it, despite a lot of talking about it during COVID, I was like, oh, we don't even make PPP equipment, can't remember what PPP stood for, but it's bullshit masks or whatever they were. But personal protective something. One of those fake acronyms. But here's my point. Everyone was like, oh my gosh, we don't even make critical medical supplies. But then, of course, no one made any effort to make them.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's easy to complain, and which I do for a living, and much harder to build a factory that makes plastic gloves or, I don't know, makes erythromycin or whatever you need.
Sure.
Antibiotics. I don't think there are any antibiotics made in the United States. I don't think vitamins are produced here. I don't think there is a vitamin C manufacturing facility in the United States. There wasn't last I checked a few months ago. So that has to change. Those are critically important to national security. Common sense tells you that. And just stuff I don't know, you probably should have a robust agricultural sector, especially when you have the Great Plains in your own country. And you don't need to, let some nonprofit, some 501c3 in DC, force you into ethanol subsidies, which is a great way to cause a famine. Growing stuff to burn it in your car when we have ample fossil fuels in the ground. Are you joking? It's insane. Just stuff like that. Just common sense. Common sense. Yeah. Don't let your resources get sold to countries that hate you. And anyway, that's a whole process that I don't think is necessarily radical. It doesn't have to be radical. It just has to be based in reason and. But it needs to start at some point, and I think this is the beginning of it.
One of the things that the Treasury Secretary said during your conversation with him is that Trump has been very clear. He's always thought of tariffs as a powerful tool to negotiate. In regards to China, though, do you think that Trump is interested in negotiating with China?
Well, of course he is. I mean, the question is, who needs the other more? Does the U.S. need China more, or China need the U.S.? I can't answer that. It's a speculative question. Then who can endure more pain? Probably the Chinese, I would think. They had famines in my lifetime, so it's a different culture, a different way of looking at the world. But both countries need each other. It's symbiotic, of course. And the deal has been for the past 30 years: we'll buy your underpriced consumer goods, you buy our overpriced debt. And in some ways that's worked great. In other ways, it hasn't worked at all.
Yeah.
And I think the Treasury Secretary made that point. Drive across the country, which most people don't do, have done, and it's like a disaster. Small town America, mid-size America, tertiary cities in America, almost all cities in America, cities and rural areas are all collapsing. It's like this is not working, and I don't know. So you just start there. We have a problem. Someone needs to do something about it. Let's try this. He did say a couple of times that, Wall Street's done really well for the past 30 years, particularly since the financial crisis, paradoxically, and Main Street hasn't. I think he used that phrase a couple of times. I don't know if this is a way, this is a way to knock some points off the Dow, and they have. Is it a way to elevate middle America? I don't know. My sense is the tax code has more effect on that. And I do think there are some changes that you could make to the tax code that would suggest greater concern for the majority than the tax code currently does. And one of them is by bringing parity between tax rates on investing and working, capital gains versus regular tax rates. And everyone's for lower capital gains, which I agree with, but I think that income taxes should be the same as capital gains, and they should drop at the same rate. Because otherwise you have the system we now have, which taxes working labor at twice the rate of investing. And so what message are you sending? That it's twice as virtuous to invest as it is to work? Someone who goes to work every day, I make my money as a wage. I make high wages, I'm a rich guy, but I'm still paying full freight in taxes. In fact, I paid them today. And so it's a little bit disgusting, actually, and decadent that people in private equity can take their wages as interest through the carried interest loophole and pay half the tax rate that I do. I'm not saying they should be executed, but I'm saying they should be prevented from doing that today. That's totally unfair and disgusting. And until you do something about that, that is the problem right there. At least morally, from my perspective, it's like, last thing I'll say, if you don't like something in this country, in the West, in general, you tax it. That's why cigarettes are $10 a deck, which they shouldn't be. The poor man's last pleasure, but they are. And cigarettes are cost 20 cents to make a pack of Marlboros, and they cost $10 at the convenience store. Why is that? Because they're taxed. Because smoking is bad. It's the one immoral act. Castrating our kids is fine. Smoking cigarettes is truly immoral. Okay, that's our position as a society. So if you tax working labor, like I'm sure you make your money from a wage, right? You go to work at the Heritage Foundation, they pay you a check every 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, it's great. No, it's a great setup.
Yeah.
But you're paying twice the rate of someone who's benefiting from the carried interest loophole scam, the billionaire. And like Republicans, I guess, have been trained to like ignore this or think that's like capitalism or something. It's not capitalism at all. It's a scam, and it should end. And so I'll take this administration seriously when I see their tax proposal. And if there's fairness there, if people who work for a wage are paying the same taxes as people who invest for a living, then I'll think that's fair. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense.
I don't think that's socialism, is it? The first time I said that to one of my college roommates, he's like, "Ooh, that's very left wing." Really? I don't think I'm left wing, actually.
I don't think anyone would accuse you of being left wing, Tucker.
I don't think I am. But like, that's outrageous.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to run to get you onto the main
I'm enjoying
stage.
myself.
I'm enjoying myself too, but I've been given the rap
Oh,
signs.
sorry. There's always someone off camera who's like,
wrap it up. But we could keep going
I used
here
to
for about
ignore
an
them.
hour.
It was always like a very huffy female who do that on my
I think you
sets.
often are ignoring them because your shows are often about 3 hours now. So.
And now there's no one watching.
Exactly. You get to do what you want. But Tucker, always a pleasure.
You're so nice to have me. Thank you.
Oh, this is a joy.
Subscribe to get the news the legacy media won't tell you and only the Daily Signal can bring to you.